All right. Now we have a recording going, hopefully. And if not, the good news is I've done this so many times, I've got a couple old recordings in the background, but we will go from here. So what are we going to do? I'm basically going to talk about the project in broad general terms. Then I will come back and talk specifically about week 4, because for most people, once you get week 4 under your belt, then you're actually in pretty good shape for the rest of the project. So I'm going to shrink this thing down. You should all be seeing my screen, so you should actually see what your course page, depending on what section you're in. This is section 1. I have section 1 and section 2, but you should be seeing the course page for this. So I suppose the first thing I should ask is if there's anyone out there that actually is seeing the course page before I keep blindly assuming that everybody is. So if anyone can just give me a yep, that's what I see in the chat box, that'll be great. All right, Candy says she is. So what I know about GoToMeetings, if one person's seeing it, everybody is seeing it. So let me back up to week 2 for a minute. In week 2, if you clicked on lessons, and it's just easier for me to go this way, if I clicked on lessons, clicked on week 2, clicked on strategic management plan company selection, and most of you have already found this, buried in here was this outline for the whole project. And I'm guessing many of you clicked on that, and the very first time you open it up and you said, oh my God, there's like 8 pages of outline. How big is this thing? It's like scary big, isn't it? I mean, it really truly is scary big to a lot of people. But it's not as bad as it sounds. So let me go through this in broad general terms, and then we'll come back. And I'm going to take it what looks to be out of order, but I think it'll make sense to you. The first thing you're actually going to do is the SWOT part of this project. SWOT, of course, your basic strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, which for some reason the outline is set up backwards, but that's just how it came when I put it together. This is going to tell you where your company is at currently. Okay? The SWOT doesn't tell you anything about the future. The SWOT doesn't tell you anything about how to manage your company. It doesn't tell you anything about how to make more money. All the SWOT is sort of that snapshot, picture in time. For those of you that are accounting oriented, think of the SWOT as like your balance sheet. It's just that picture in time, where am I right now? You know, what are my rivals up to? Are there people getting ready to enter my industry? Why or why not? How much power do my customers have? How much power do my suppliers have? These are all, if these are seeming familiar to you, yep, these are all Porter. You know, what about substitute products? A lot of people get confused on substitute products, of course. They think that a substitute means buying the same product somewhere else at a cheaper price. That's not a substitute. That's the same product. A substitute product is, gee, I'm thinking about buying a Blu-ray player, but I know that I could actually skip the whole Blu-ray thing and just go to Netflix. So those would be substitutes for each other. General environment, economic, and I'm going to come back to this. But in week 4, so by this Sunday, whatever that is, August 3rd, you will have gone through the entire SWOT for the company you picked in week 2. That's all you need to do in week 4. I know some of you are saying, that's all. My God, Tom, we have a life. It's like, yeah, Tom does too. I will have 150 papers to grade come Monday, August 4th. So, but yeah, it's going to take a while. So the SWOT is what you have for week 4, the external, every single one of these. Now, well, we'll come back to that. But everything in the SWOT is going to need to be completed for week 4. Okay, the external and the internal. And then you will stop. Then you get a break. You get a week to rest. Then in week 6, Week 6 is where you start coming up with your issues. If the SWOT told you, where am I at right now? Week 6, the issues and the alternatives are going to tell you, where do I want to be? What's the issue? I'm not selling enough. What am I going to do about it? What's the issue? I have too much employee turnover. What am I going to do about it? What's the issue? Another hospital opened up right across the street from me and they're taking all my patients. What am I going to do about it? And so in week 6, you're going to come up with issue number 1, issue number 2, and issue number 3. And for each one of those issues, so for issue number 1, you're going to come up with 3 possible alternatives. I'm not selling enough. Alternative 1 maybe is lower my price so I can sell more. Alternative 2 is maybe do more marketing so people know more about my product. Alternative 3 is maybe don't do anything about it at all. I don't really need to sell anymore. I'm filthy rich anyway. Why am I being such a pig? Okay, whatever alternatives you come up with. Then, of course, the recommendation is simply picking one of those. Now, here's the trick that people, and why I make this video. Week 4 is pretty straightforward. Week 4 is do the SWOT. You have your external porter. You have your external general. And you have your internal. And then you know you're done. Once you've done your SWOT, you know you're done. Week 6 and 8 and 10 kind of all run together, so be careful. In week 6, you're going to do your issue. You're going to do your alternatives. And you're going to do a recommendation, but that's where you're going to stop. So week 6, you work through the recommendation. Week 8 is going to be a bunch of implementation plans. How are you going to actually do this? So if week 6 is where do I want to be? What are my problems? Where do I want to be? Week 8 is going to be the pragmatics. How do I actually fix those problems? What do I do to actually fix those problems? And I will have videos. For those of you that have been watching the course page, you know I load this class up with videos. There will be videos in week 6 to talk about issues. There will be videos in week 8 to talk about implementations. And then in week 10, the last week, you're going to come up with an evaluation. Okay, how do you know that what you put into place actually worked? Okay. And then finally for week 10, besides your evaluations, you will come back up. Once everything else is done, you'll write me a 1 to 2 page executive summary. For those of you that have done executive summaries, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you that haven't, this is what we used to call in high school a book report. Okay? You get 1 to 2 pages to convince me that I should spend the time to read the next 20 pages in your report. Now, you don't really have to convince me because I'm your teacher, and so I will read every single one of these that gets turned in. Probably I'll read them in week 4, then I'll read them in week 6. Then I'll read anyway. But keep in mind that most of you picked a company that you work at, or you know someone that works at, or you work closely with. You're going to want to give this strategic plan when you're done with it to someone at that company. You're going to hand them 15, 20 pages of strategic plan. They're going to want to know why they should read more than 1 page. That's what your executive summary does. It tells that CEO, it tells that division president, why do I want to take 15, 20 minutes out of my day to read your report? All right. So before I go on to week 4 specifically, let me see if I can sum this all up. The strategic plan, the whole concept of a strategic plan is basically, number 1, you do a SWOT that tells you where you're at today. That's week 4. Number two, you come up with your issues. Where do I want to be? What do I want to see different? What do I want to see better? And you come up with some alternatives to fix stuff. That's week 6. The next part is the implementation, week 8. That's the how do I actually do all that? You will laugh. My wife's favorite movie happens to be Independence Day, which just happened to be on a couple days ago, which is weird. You would have thought it would have been on 4th of July, but it wasn't. It was on like the 29th of July or some goofy deal. But there's a line in Independence Day, for those of you familiar with the movie, when they're getting ready to fly the alien spacecraft up to the mothership to blow it up. And, the Jeff Goldblum character turns to the Will Smith character and says, "Do you really think you can fly that thing?" And the Will Smith character turns back to the Goldblum character and says, "You really think you can do all that bull that you just said?" That's what the implementation plan is. Week 6, you told me all these grandiose things you wanted to do. Week 8 is you're actually going to show me how you can talk the talk and walk the walk. How are you going to put it into action? And then week 10, the evaluation phase, that's how do I know when I get there? Okay, so where am I at? Where do I want to be? How do I get there? How do I know when I've arrived? For those of you somewhat familiar with Minnesota, what it really boils down to is I live in St. Cloud. Brainerd's about 60 miles away. The SWOT for me, where am I at now? I'm in St. Cloud. The issue for me, where do I want to be? I want to be in Brainerd. The implementation plan, how do I get to Brainerd? Well, I guess I could drive. I guess I could get a taxi and have them drive me. I used to be able to take a Greyhound bus, but I guess they don't exist anymore. I could probably get on an airplane, fly to Minneapolis, and then fly back to Brainerd. Lots of different ways of getting there, lots of alternatives. My preferred method may be to drive, and if I drive, then I have to decide, well, do I want to drive through Little Falls? Do I want to drive through Piers? How do I want to get to Brainerd? That's all part of that implementation. And then finally, the evaluation. How do I know when I've arrived? For any of you that have been in Brainerd, there used to be at least a big honking water tower smack in the middle of town. When I see that water tower, I pretty much figure that, yep, I'm in Brainerd. So that's how it works. Let me pause here. I will go back and do a couple quick minutes specifically on week 4, but let me ask, for those of you that have been able to hear, any questions, anything you want me to go back, anything you want me to go over, anything else you'd like to have covered again? Okay. All right. And of course, for all of you, if this is going a little fast or you're not sure, all right, pretty clear, good. This, of course, will be posted as a YouTube. It'll be out there for you to watch, and like any other YouTube, you can watch it over and over and over again. It just makes me feel so good when people watch my YouTubes because they're like, horribly dull. I don't have any dancing dogs in the background or anything. So I do have a dog and he does dance, but the school won't let me put him on my YouTubes anymore. They got lots of rules. All right, so week 4, seeing no questions generally. Let me go to a specific on week 4, the SWOT. Okay. For those of you that are wondering, yes, this is Porter. So current rivalry, potential entrance, buyer power, supplier power, that was actually part of week 3. So if you're a little fuzzy on Porter, I would go back to week 3. I think the general environment in total, the economic, demographic, sociocultural, that was probably a combination of week 2 and week 3. And the internal environment seems to be where we are this week. For those of you that haven't caught it before, I know I've put it in a couple discussion forum posts. Internal things are things that the company can control. So if you think about it like this, managers, the company can hire and fire whoever they want for a manager. They can control that. So what do they have for managerial strengths? Where are the weaknesses? Corporate structure. The company can decide how it wants to structure. Do we go with the old school, vertical pyramid type of structure? Do we do some flat structure? Do we structure like Google? How do we want to go? What are the goods, the bads about our structure? Corporate culture, not the same as structure. Corporate structure is like the org chart. Corporate culture is, what's it like to work here? Is everyone uptight? Is everyone upset with everybody else? Are we all loaded up with silos? Are we one big happy family? Do we make yogurt so the corporate culture is yogurt? That's a joke for those of you that eat it. Okay. Production operations. Please don't put NA down there and say, oh, my company doesn't have a production. Every company makes something. Even if you're a service company, you have operations. So I'm a cleaning service. Okay, that's your operation. You might not be producing anything, but you do have an operation. What do you do well? What do you do poorly? Marketing. This isn't just advertising. This is marketing. For those of you that had a marketing class, this is the 4 Ps. Come back to haunt you. Price, product, placement, and promotion. Pretty good considering I hardly ever teach marketing. R&D, research and development. Here's a little hint for people watching this video. If you put NA down here, that tells me right off the get-go that you don't have any research and development. That's probably a weakness, not an NA. Okay. HR management, same thing. If you write, well, we don't have any HR, that doesn't make it NA. That's just a flat-out weakness. Okay. Information systems. What do you do well? What do you do poorly? But all of those, when you think about it, the company can decide what they want to use for information system. Do we want intranet, internet? Do we want to just holler at each other down the hall? All of these internal things are controllable by the company. When you get to the and I should back up. And so for all the internals, the reason that I asked everyone when they picked a company to pick something they could get inside information on is that internal analysis is really going to require you to have insider information. All right? That will be key to you. Now, the externals, for those of you that like research, the externals are the ones that are going to come from your outside research. You might have to do some research to find out who your company's rivals really are. You might say, oh, well, I'm a little mom and pop grocery store in a 20-person town. We don't have any rivals. I'll bet everyone in that town at one point in time or another drives to the next larger city to shop at another store. Potential entrants. Maybe someone's going to open a second grocery store in town. How are you going to find out? Buyer power. If you're the only grocery store in town, your customers probably don't have much power. If you want to charge them $20 a gallon for milk, you can probably get away with it on a Sunday night when they don't feel like driving and they forgot to buy milk. Supplier power. If you're a little mom and pop store, you probably don't have much power over your supplier. They've probably got you right where they want you because you're dependent on them. All of these things are Porter again. And of course, substitute products. Do I have to buy from your grocery store? Do I have to have groceries? Yeah, I probably do have to have groceries. So there's not a lot of substitute products for food. I suppose grow your own. So if you're in a small rural community, you might find that people say, I don't need to buy meat from you. Bob's Dairy Ranch down the road periodically kills a cow and we all get meat. I don't need to buy milk from you. Bob's Dairy Ranch got milk. Bob's Dairy Ranch got butter. I know how to turn milk and cream into ice cream. So, what do I need you for? Orange juice, yes, because oranges don't grow normally in Minnesota. Okay. General external environment. Economy. How is the economy affecting your company? Is your company seeing opportunities in the current economy? Threats? What are they? Demographics, if you don't know what that means, look it up. Socio-cultural issues out there. Political, legal issues. That should speak for itself. What are the politicians doing to help and hurt your company? Technological issues. Should you have something for every single category in the SWOT? The answer is yes. Now I've put little ones, little twos, little ones, little twos. Do you have to have 2 things for every category in the SWOT? No, you do not. So for every category, opportunity, threat, for every category you should have at least 1. Some of them you might find you have 3, 4 items. They're things that are really relevant to your company, and you really, really want to do something about those. Others, you're going to struggle to come up with one, and that's really, if that's all there is, then that's all there is. Please do not just put NA, because NA is really just sends up a flag to me that you need to go out and do a little bit more research. Outside research if it's external, and of course your insider contact if it's internal. Okay. Every category needs to have at least one thing. Some will have more than one, some will have 2, some will have 3, but everything should have at least one. And I think that probably covers the SWOT, which should get people going pretty well for week 4. Couple other general questions. Let's see if I can think. What do I usually get? People ask me this a lot in week 8 and week 10. Do we write a paper for this project? The answer is no. And some of you, the people that are watching this live and the ones that are watching this as a YouTuber are going, what do you mean no? We don't write a paper. This is Rasmussen. We write papers all the time in Rasmussen. You don't in for this one. What about APA? You know, if you do some outside research for your external environment, yeah, I'd like you to attach a reference page on the end with your outside research, but I'm not looking, the rest of this is an outline. Well, can we just use the outline? Not only can you, I require you to. What happens if we don't use the outline? I send it back to you and ask you to please put it back in the outline form. Where did this outline come from? It actually came from the back of your textbook. If you have the ebook, I think in the ebook it's either called Appendix 2 or Appendix B as in boy. It's the second appendix, and this outline is actually in there. It's been partially completed. So if you want to see what a partially completed one looks like, you could go to that appendix in your ebook. And I'm assuming by now everyone has an ebook. What else? What other questions do I get? Help me out here for those of you that are on the call. What other questions do you have that I haven't answered? I know there's going to be one or two that we all just missed, but what else can I tell you about the project in general or specific that will make your life easier for this? Candy, that's a really good question. Do you have to use the indentations? No. As far as the format goes, you don't have to use the indentations. What I'm getting at more about the outline is rather than turning this into an essay format or a letter format or a research paper format, please just leave it as an outline format. You are right, the indentations, yeah, this is why some people end up with a 20, 30-page paper, because if you use the indentations, you can see that it gets pretty long pretty quick. If you want to change some of those, certainly go for it. This is a Word document, so you should be able to edit it. Regina, how much information is required for each entry? Another excellent question. The short answer to you is enough information that I will be able to figure out what you're talking about. Most of you have picked companies that you are very familiar with. You work there, mom or dad works there, your spouse works there, brother, sister, whatever it may be. You might be able to answer this in 2 or 3 words and know exactly what you mean. But as my wife will tell you, I am horrible at reading minds. I barely can read my own mind, let alone anybody else's. So if 2, 3 words is going to make it so crystal clear that even I can figure out what you're talking about, then 2, 3 words is fine. Normally in here, something approaching full sentences is going to work. Do you need whole paragraphs? I would think not. You know, if it's that hard to explain, you might want to look at the fact that maybe you have more than one issue. So, Regina, did that answer the question, or did that just make it more confusing? Oh, perfect. Well, I hardly ever do that. I'm going to tell my wife when I'm done. Yeah. Other things that I can help you guys with. Looks like we've been going a little over half an hour here. Anything else you would like to know? I'm not seeing anything. All right. Well, Jason, I appreciate that. And like I say, this will be out there hopefully by tomorrow. I have one from last quarter that will actually be in the announcements until this one converts to YouTube. It takes a little bit to do that. But once I have that, I will simply post this one up and everyone can watch that. Let me go back here. Of course, since I've got you guys live and this is also taking the place of the mini lecture, anything else I can answer for you about the course in general or week 4 in general or anything else? All right. Well, seeing no other questions, I will bid all of you good evening again. I'll turn my webcam. Let's see. Show my screen as paused. We'll put that back on. We'll do that. See? I'm still here. Yep. Didn't go anywhere. Still with the same stupid headset. Yep. There we are. All right. I don't have anything else. Everyone else is good. You guys have a good evening. Thank you very much for attending. It's always better to do this to at least 1 or 2 people than talking to myself. Have a nice night. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Bye.